everyone. Welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other, where we talk about Detroit and MSU sports. And you guys, we're about a little more than half an hour away from Michigan State kicking off against Tulsa in their season opener. Planning on making a video last night, but I just couldn't seem to be satisfied with, just playing it back and everything. So my thoughts on the upcoming season is going to be published about probably 15 minutes before the kickoff, so cutting it a little close, but I have a lot of thoughts on this upcoming season for MSU. And if you guys don't know, sports comes, MSU is my lifeblood. You know, they're the team that I'm most passionate about in sports, to be honest with you. More than the Lions, more than the Pistons, more than even MSU basketball. So, that should say something to you. But, I think you look at the season and you're just so itching to move on from last year, turn the page. That's kind of what I'm hoping tonight is for the Spartans. I'm hoping that they're just able to, put last year behind them. Last year there's so much that I think almost even more than the 3-9 year, there's so many things that you are just disgusted with last year. And, you just want to see some success. You want to be proud, we're always proud, but you just want to feel good about this team. Last year gave you really nothing to feel good about because it was a wasted defense and an offense that was the worst we've ever seen. And it was the bottom 5 worst in the entire nation. So, you look on the positive side, though, and you say it is pretty impressive that a bottom 5 offensive team was carried to a 7-6 record, basically on the shoulders of the defense. I do think that's impressive. It's not really something to brag about, and it's not something, to be, it gives you a little bit of hope for this year. Because, the reality is that in order for MSU to be a contender for the Big Ten, if their defense was as good as they were last year, the offense just has to be a little bit better. And when I say a little, I mean just a little. Like, MSU doesn't even have to really score that much. If they score 20 points a game and they're consistent and they, control the clock, they can win every single game that they play. I don't think they are going to have they're going to have a real dynamic offense this year. I think that the best that we can hope for is that the offense can run the ball, with some efficiency or some effectiveness, and that their offense can keep the chains moving, that they'll be able to score the touchdowns in the red zone. I know that they've had issues with their tight ends in the past couple years. Their tight ends have been inefficient. They've been almost a non-factor. And, they just need to keep the chains moving. And like I said, be able to score just a little bit, be able to, I don't know what the metrics are, but maybe be able to at least get either a touchdown or a field goal, maybe half your drive, something like that. And, if the Spartans can do what they did against Iowa, not even just a couple years ago, but in the Big Ten championship game where they had like a 9-minute drive going to win that game. If they can do that each game, every drive, that's a little bit of an extreme. Those drives, it's not easy to sustain a drive that long, that many plays, but if they can kind of use that as their their mantra, in the game against Iowa 2 years ago when they played, I think they won 17-10. They scored 2 early touchdowns, and they were able to just manage the rest of the game offensively. They were just able to, have a decent running game, have a guy on third down who can get conversions like Cody White, stuff like that. I think this this team can win a Big Ten title if they just do that alone. If they play like a Pittsburgh Steelers brand of football, So so they don't have to have an elite offense. But one thing I want to mention, that this year kind of lines itself up kind of well, because if you look at a lot of the past teams in MSU history, when they've had a disappointing year, they've, under D'Antonio, every single year they have always come back strong the next year. You got to ask yourself, when have they not rebounded from a bad season under D'Antonio? The answer is never. So I think this does, in that regard, it does feel like a season that should be a resurgence. It feels like it should be a big season for these guys, and I believe that it can be. Michigan State, I'm going to say it right now, they can win the Big Ten title, and there's a lot of names being thrown out there, but Michigan State should be one of them, because a lot, even though they didn't fire any offensive coordinators, you can tell it got D'Antonio's attention by switching around the coaches, and that's not the preferred move of everybody. Everyone would prefer that they bring in someone new, but I don't know if a lot of those D'Antonio's a very hard guy, I think, to probably coach with. I think he has a very specific coach he's looking for, so I think that's why he recycles coaches. But even though they didn't do it the way that everyone wanted them to, you can tell that it got D'Antonio's attention how bad their offense was, and that is going to tell me that they're at least not ignorant enough to know that they don't have to change anything this year. They know that they have to change something in order to get a different result. So I don't think they're going to blame their offensive struggles on injuries alone, although just having a moderately healthy team would have greatly improved their offense last year. And that's probably something that you could look at and say, maybe the offensive coordinators get a little bit too much blame when they have to deal with that many injuries. Any team would struggle on offense, and I think there is some truth to that. So I'm just tired of waiting. Just like you guys, I want to see. It's long overdue for this team to, start kind of earning back that reputation of kind of a contender in the Big Ten. I got to be honest. After the past couple seasons, they've been inconsistent. 3 wins followed by 10 wins followed by 7 wins. That's the definition of kind of like a up and down all over the map program. Michigan State didn't used to be like that. From 2009 to 2015, they were pretty much they were on schedule. They were going to have a tough year every now and then they'd set themselves up for 2 or 3 years of really good football. So Michigan State needs to get back on that cycle. D'Antonio, unfortunately, Michigan State is not able to ride on their reputation like they were able to a couple of years ago. They have to start building that reputation back up, and I don't think you necessarily have to build from ground zero, but you have to reestablish yourself. You got a little bit off track, losing all those seniors a couple of years ago in that whole situation with the players. I think it was like a sexual assault charge. 4 of their top recruits ended up getting kicked off the team. And the next year, MSU was left with just a bunch of very young players. And so they were just they still are in a very unique situation because of that. But I think that another important thing to remember about this team is that they're going to be losing a lot of talent next year. They're going to be losing a lot of experience. They'll still have talent. They'll still have premier athletes, but they won't have, the experience. They'll probably be like Michigan will be this year. They'll have lost a lot on defense. They'll have lost just as much on offense. And, their youth is going to have to carry them. I think if you look at 2017, they answered the bell. I don't know if you can really expect that every single time, but I think next year is going to be interesting for MSU, and to be honest with you, I think there's an outside chance of this, but I don't think it's out of the question that D'Antonio could retire at the end of this year, because The cupboards are going to be so empty next year. And, it's like no team is completely empty or void of talent, but just, I think that it would make the most logical sense for him next year if he was going to do it soon, because, this is kind of like the culmination year. This is the year when it's all going to come to a T, and then after that, they're going to have to start kind of getting their players some continuity with each other. They're going to have some experience playing in games. It'll probably take 12 or 20, at least the majority of a season, for the next group of guys to get on the same page. And, I don't know if D'Antonio wants to go through another kind of struggle, another difficult year next year, which, you look at his past and it's kind of hard not to see them struggling next year, having like a 7-6 year or whatever. But, this year, you guys, it's in the cards. It's all out there for them. They might not be favored, but they absolutely have the talent. They have the resources to win the Big Ten. They can do anything short of winning a national championship. I don't think a national championship would be in the cards for this team, but that doesn't mean don't think they can get back to the college football playoff. So, that has to be the goal this year. It has to be, kind of like Big Ten or bust, kind of, you guys. So with that, I'll just probably give you guys kind of a prediction for this season. This is going to be kind of a lame prediction. I'm not going to go game by game, but I think they'll either finish 10-2, maybe one out-of-conference loss, and maybe one loss to Northwestern or Wisconsin, or both. I'm going to say either 10-2 or 11-1. I do think that they're going to. This is going to be a very resilient team. They were, believe it or not, they were resilient last year. I know it didn't show in what they achieved, but if you just look at the injuries they have, that's a resilient team, and this team will go far if they stay moderately healthy. I think if they're moderately healthy, 10 wins is probably the baseline, you guys. So, I guess that's all I got for you guys. Looking forward to this season. Probably be uploading a lot of videos in regards to the Spartans and Lions after every week, kind of breaking down the game, and seeing what direction the teams are going in, you guys. So have a great Labor Day weekend. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you guys soon.